weekends on the walks, a user error. Well, the first one, it didn't download, but last week it only recorded audio, didn't record the video. So today, hopefully we got this. But we'll give everybody a second to come in here. But a lot of you, I'm sure, know Chrissy.
Hello, everybody. It's my absolute pleasure to be here with everybody today. I see some friendly faces and names I know.
I know. It's always fun. It's always nice. I always have like 4 or 5 faces across the top.
Yep.
It's Chrissy I've known Chrissy for, I guess, a couple years now. But I wanted to have her with me today because we are talking about different little tips and tricks about Paris, but she has a fantastic website that she started, and you could go to her website and she'll tell you all about it, but you could go and sign up the subscription to get her posts that she does like twice a week. That has all sorts of really great tips that you could use in packing and getting to Paris and what you do. And of, some other fun things like things about red lipstick and, manicures, red, of course. Well, somebody told me one day years ago that only whores have red fingernail polish. And I was like looking at her like, you do see my fingernails are red, right?
No.
I think there was there should have been like one figure I really should have showed her with that red polish. But we will go ahead and get started. We have some other people still popping in here. I'll let you guys in. But oh, great. Chrissy put the website there in the chat for you guys. But we'll go ahead and jump in. A couple weeks ago, I did a chat and I had a whole list of things we were going to talk about. And then we ended up only talking basically about the airfare, the airlines, how to get there. Today, we're going to do a little bit about that because there's everything about the airlines are in the news right now. But then we're going to give you a bunch of other things to think about before you go on your way there, and then fun things when you are there. So we could go ahead and we will start. As you know, anybody that has an internet connection or probably the TV news knows that the airports and the airlines are a disaster right now, especially in Europe. A friend of mine, Catherine, if she's here, she had 3 flights or 4 flights in a couple days, and all of them were late. They all took off late. So it's just kind of a big thing right now. And I've had a lot of clients when I'm doing trip planning for people asking like, oh, but I'm leaving in October. Is it going to be okay? It should be, I don't have a crystal ball, but it's going to be fine. And it's probably going to be fine sooner rather than later. The airports, the airlines are just like pretty much the restaurant business. Every other business right now is down staff. After COVID, people are probably like, hey, I don't want to go back to that minimum wage job, schlepping luggage for everybody. So a lot of these businesses, the staffing is down, but the demand is way up. Like travel is up higher than they ever thought it would be coming out of COVID. So that's just those 2 things. If you're going to be flying, I'm hoping in a few weeks is going to be okay myself. But because I have a lot of luggage that will be coming with me. But that is one thing. And right before we started this, Chrissy and I were chatting about it, and she had mentioned the Concierge Service, which we see a lot of times in some of the message boards. And that's, I don't know if everybody else has seen those things, but Chrissy could maybe talk about that a little bit, about whether that's something you want to do or not. I've had people that are like, it's my first time going to, Charles de Gaulle, and it's huge and massive. And should I get somebody that meets me at the gate? My opinion is I think it's a big waste of money. If you're a super, super nervous person and that makes you feel better, then do it. Charles de Gaulle, and when you fly into an international country, it's like IKEA. There's no way for you to get lost. You're going to have to go, they're going to steer you through like cattle until you get to that passport control. It's very easy. But Chrissy could give you her thoughts on that as well.
Sure, I'd love to. First, for anybody who's not familiar with me, my name is Chrissy Consolet, and my own Paris blog is called ParisianNiche.com. Hi, Sharon. My blog is quite new. It launched out of the book club that I've held for just over 3 years. We're around 50 books deep, 20,000 pages. We're still going strong. And from those book clubs, naturally, lots of longer conversations came about with Paris tips and tricks. When are we going? When are we going to meet up? We've been fortunate enough to have a book club in Paris. And so a couple of girlfriends approached me and said, put your ideas in writing, make a love letter to Paris, a written journal. And so we're still in our baby steps, but we're launching very strong. As Claudine had hinted at, we try to get a little bit of everything. So some fashion, some Paris lifestyle for the femme inside all of us, and there is, and everything under the Parisian sun. So speaking of travel, as Claudine said, I'm going to echo what she said and say this is around $150 to upwards of $300 for the amount of people that you're traveling with, a service that you might not need. I definitely also agree that this luggage struggle and airport issue will not be long lasting. I do think that within the next couple of weeks, it will be resolved for the peak August season. I think that you could spend your money in a wiser way. I'm going to say maybe make a $25 investment on an AirTag to put within your luggage. These are very easy to get. You go straight to Amazon or Apple. If you have a Samsung device, you can look at the Samsung devices. Easy to obtain, easy to program. Even I can figure it out, and I am not tech savvy. I think it's a great sense of security to know where your bags are at all times. You might also check with your specific airlines. Delta will travel, check your bags as long as they go. Air France will also send you updates. And, instead of spending $300 on a concierge, you might want to spend $50 on travel insurance. This way, just in case your bags don't arrive with you, you have a little leeway to go shopping for some clothes, save your receipts for reimbursements, done and done, easy breezy. Paris is an easy city.
Yeah, and if that's, back in December and then also again in April and March when I got to Paris, I got there in December and the day after Christmas, it was 62 degrees. All I had were sweaters. When I got there in March, it was 74 degrees. By the end of the week, it was 30 degrees and snowing. So my favorite place, Uniqlo, is a great place if you are in Paris and you need those things. Uniqlo, on an off subject as far as packing, they have these pieces called Heat Tech, and they're like really, really lightweight. They have like long sleeve. They even have like a really light, like almost like a stocking legging. And those things keep you so warm, you will almost pass out from the heat. But those are the things that if you do get there, you could find everything you need in Paris, other than like medication. But even if it is like that, you would want to keep that on your person. You don't want to put that in your bags. But you could find anything you pretty much need in Paris if something like that happens. Always a little trick. Always keep a few things in your bag you're carrying on, like a pair or two of undies. Maybe one set of clothes, like maybe an extra pair of pants and a shirt and a scarf and stuff. So if that does happen, you have at least a day of clothes with you when you arrive.
Yeah. And Ellen brings up a good point too. CNA is a great shop, really centrally located, great prices, great assortment of items. Same thing for any Monoprix. You can get food, everything from food to houseware there.
Oh, I love Monoprix.
And I see that Martha is planning a trip for her daughters, 12 and 14. So Claudine, if I can pop into packing real, no pun intended. And we'll link, I'll put put a bunch of this on my website as well. And we'll post this video, but do make sure you check out Chrissy's website, because she has great things about packing. Thank you. And the first thing I want to do is approach the mindset of you can only travel with the carry-on. If you check your bags, you're doing it wrong. I'm not here to shame how anybody packs. I myself am a check-in kind of girl. There's a very specific reason. It's because I shop very heavy, very forward. You can certainly get through Paris for a week or two if you have a carry-on, especially if you're fortunate enough to be at an Airbnb or a Verbo with washing machine. However, do not let these travel boards that are rather forceful in their opinions that you should never check dissuade you. Do not let the dramas at the airports dissuade you, because they're always going to lead the media with the really bad news. Yes, some terrible, busyness is happening at the airport, but there's still a lot of good going on. You should feel safe and secure packing your luggage, especially for two young ladies. That what I will say is pack lighter than you think. I'm very eager to talk about packing with capsules, which I talk about heavily in my blog, and we'll be putting up a fall packing capsule very soon. You don't need as much as you think. You can mix and match. Unless you're going out to an extremely posh restaurant that requires a jacket and tie or more elegant attire, you really can get away with accessorizing a basic item a lot of different ways. If you bring one black dress, the little black dress, and a couple of different scarves, belts, and accessories, you've got 5 or 6 different outfits in one item of clothing. If you do decide to check in a bag, you will have a lot more room for shopping and or extras. And what I mean by extras is, say, for instance, you want to go to the flea markets and you know well ahead. All these items that we bought on Amazon Prime Day, raise his hand guilty, we can save this packaging. I always line, and I know Lori does this too, we line our luggage with bubble wrap. It takes up virtually no space. But when you come home, you have the accommodation to buy something more fragile, a bottle of wine, some jars of mustard. All of these items can be easily packed and delicately packed with a very thin layer of bubble wrap in your suitcase, any Amazon Prime items, envelopes. In addition, I also tend to bring dry cleaner hangers. Oftentimes when I get to a hotel, especially when I travel with family, there's just not enough hanger space. I toss in 5 or 6 hangers from the dry cleaner. They don't cost a penny. They take up incredibly a small amount of space, but they save a lot of worry and hassle in Paris, especially as you're shopping there and you want to wear the items that you're purchasing. Hang them right up, leave them in the closet on the way out. No muss, no fuss. I'd also be happy to take any questions about packing. I'm not shy on the subject. Any questions that you think might be peculiar, I've faced them all.
I like to, one thing I always do when I go over, which will be different this time because it's basically one way, but I always have a small rolling one that I put extra stuff in that I carry and I put on, I take onto the plane, I carry it on and put it in there with the intent that I know that that's going to be filled with 50 pounds worth of most likely books. Then I could check it on the way out. So I'm only having to pay, I'm only going to have to pay for it one way, depending on what your ticket includes. I always bring a lot of stuff like I get I maker mover, all of those things that I use here. Once it gets to like a half or like a quarter, I just have this drawer and I just toss it in. So all of those things. So then when I go, I take them with me and then I just toss all that stuff. So like, I'm not taking something that's full and using part of it. And then that's just extra added weight that's coming back. I always washcloths, anybody that's been to Paris or Europe in general, there's no washcloths. It was the weirdest thing when I first got there. I was like, what do you mean there's a washcloth? So I bought years ago, like a stack of like a dozen of them on Amazon. And every time I go, I take 2. Now in the apartment I always stay in, which now is my apartment, there's stacks of them there because I just leave them there. Or like the bath, those big bath balls, that you use to scrub, whatever those things are, like the big pom-poms. I always take a new one with me because it's dry. And then when I leave, I toss it. I mean, how horrible to put this stuff in the garbage, but it's also like, there's things that I take with no intention of bringing back. And in my mind, I'm like, well, after all this extra stuff I did a pack, there's got to be tons of room in there. There's not usually, but all of those little things, like, so that you don't, you're not bringing all that extra stuff back both ways, really helps too. Because all of that, I mean, if especially any of you ladies, when you pack, your bag is like fine. And then you put that bag of toiletries in it and the toiletries is like 15 pounds. It was like, how is this so heavy? And it's just, once you put that in there, now your luggage is at the brim or higher.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely true.
Yeah.
And you make a good point about bringing up those big jars because you leave them behind. And again, more room for stuff coming back. And we all shop more than we think we will. There's times when I swear I won't buy a thing. I tell myself lies, friends.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I know Ellen, they love to go and get all of the food and all of that good stuff. Now, this time though, you're probably gonna want to get the French mustard in the States and take it with you and maybe bring some of that French mustard to your French friends because they can't get it. But that's the fun stuff to bring back, those kinds of things. Like always would bring back my favorite little French coffee pods because then every morning it's just today, it's always a little bit of, France that I have every morning. So you want to bring those things those are the fun things to bring back that extend kind of your trip, especially those days, those weeks, I should say, when it's just unbearable to not be there.
It's true. And I see Judy asked a great question about insurance just for luggage. I'm actually not aware of any insurance that exists just for that. I will look into that. I think that's a fantastic question. And one more packing scenario I want to toss out there is something that I've started doing more recently is I pack my check-in bag I pack my carry-on bag within my checked luggage for trips where I know that I will be shopping quite heavily or shopping for bulky items. For example, I'll give you an example. I'm planning on heading over to the Versailles Masked Ball next June, and that's going to be a multiple bag kind of trip. So it will go within so that we can still buy and get home. But Deborah said something. She says AIG travel insurance covers luggage loss. So I think that's a great tip. Thank you for that, Deborah.
You can also, there's services. I can't think of what the name of it is. Maybe you remember, Chrissy, that you could actually send your bag in advance. So they basically send it. It's almost like UPS. You could mail it and they will ship it and deliver it to your address, especially if you're staying at a hotel. It's a great way to do it because there's somebody there as opposed to an Airbnb where you go ship your luggage in advance if you're really that worried about it. And it could get there and be there waiting for you. But, I think, anybody that's not going in the next couple of weeks, I think, and I already saw that in Paris there, also they said it'll probably be within the week that they're going to get the baggage issue fixed at Charles de Gaulle.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it was Angela said bring large Ziploc bags for butter. So true. I did not know this until this year that you could bring butter home. It has to be within a checked bag. I will definitely be doing that. Again, save those Amazon Prime for the bubble wrap, make it nice and soft, leave it in the freezer till that last minute. I think it's a great way to get that home.
Ziploc bags is one thing that you cannot, the Ziploc bags, you can't get the same, though. That's one thing. There's somebody asked me like, what are you going to miss when you leave France or when you leave the US? And I was like, a dryer and sheets that don't feel like sandpaper when they're dried. But there are other things like you can't get the Ziploc, like you don't really get those Ziploc bags. And I always do that. I use them actually like to put toiletries in, like the bottles, so they don't open. And then I have them, sometimes if I have something left over or a piece of baguette and I throw them in there, because that is one of those weird things that you really can't find there, or you do, and they're not very good.
Or they're crazy expensive.
Yeah.
Mr. Keating had asked about August weather, packing for August weather, days versus nights. August is super hit and miss because there's days where it can go up to 100 and change and then drop down to the 60s in the evening. My best precaution here is, again, layering as we would in the fall with the different twists. So you would take a short sleeve t-shirt with a sports jacket if I'm speaking to a gentleman, or a cute denim jacket for a lady, a scarf that if it's crazy hot, you take it off and twist it around your handbag strap just for ease and a little kick of color. So definitely you're going to want to be prepared for cool mornings and evenings, but hot during the day, and recognizing that unlike America, there is not aircon everywhere we go. It is a very different experience. So that is my thought there. Again, if you prefer to go to ParisianNiche.com to look at the capsule wardrobe, that particular blog is called Packing for Paris, What a Capsule. Again, underpack. Don't take as many items. If you think you're going to be going out to 10 different events, I can assure you, you only need 5 different items to pack and wear differently. And for our single ladies and or gentlemen traveling, I'm going to mention 2 items to definitely pack. One is a very small memo book, which sounds very remedial, but there's a reason for my madness here. The first is something I've witnessed firsthand with my mother. When we go to the flea markets, my mom's an interior designer, so we heavily shop there. She wanted some independence on her own to shop for her clients during the day. She was able to navigate not speaking a word of French just by writing numbers, and the guy could cross out and write a different number to negotiate. Really works like a charm. And this is, again, several years back. More and more they speak English, but we should be prepared that sometimes, we're in France, we're not in America. And let me hasten to say that if somebody's struggling to understand you, it is not the time to just speak slower and louder. It will dissuade them from trying to help you. Just a simple jot down will really get you quite a long way. And even before you begin shopping at that table, Bonjour. Everywhere you go, to every single person you think you don't need to say hello to, I can assure you, you do.
Even if you don't see them, if you walk into a shop and you don't see that, you don't see anybody, just say it anyway, because they're probably, out of view. And if you don't, it could start to turn sideways.
Yes. And Ellen makes a good point. Even the bus drivers. Yes. Bonjour. And as you leave, if you pass them, merci. There's the holy trinity of manners in France. Bonjour, s'il vous plaît, merci. These 3 words are all you need to know to navigate a truly successful trip. What I also suggest, especially for women traveling alone, is packing a journal. There's going to be many moments where you're sitting at a cafe eating alone, and some people might feel a little bit awkward or uncomfortable or in the line of vision, especially if you're sitting al fresco. This is a great moment to take the focus off of that feeling of awkwardness or shyness. Jot down some of your thoughts. This is a great way to keep track of the trip, as well as things that you're seeing that you think you're going to like, but maybe don't want to take a picture of and annoy some other people. Our love of selfies is not the same over there. You might want to say, oh, I've tried this meal, 5 out of 10. You've gone to this cafe, 10 out of 10, highly recommend. Write down the name, because as much as you think you'll remember or even take a picture, you will forget. We're not operating in our own time zone, our own comfort zone. It's important to document these items. And it's a great, again, love letter to self, love letter to Paris. You come home with an extra set of memories.
Yeah, it is. You will think you will remember what you did. And I mean, I could tell you that there's times that, I don't remember where I went the day before, just because I'm doing a ton of things, but it's like, wait a minute, which day was that? And then, sometimes you could recreate it by looking through your photos, but I just always every night just write down, like, I was at Nemours and then Louvre, repeat.
Judy brings up a great point too. She's saying to know how to say où la toilette. So where are the toilets, the bathrooms, and always keep some euros on yourself.
Yes.
In France, I always make the joke, it is not free to pee. You're going to have some euro coins on you at all times.
Madame Pipi.
Madame Pipi, we from Emily in Paris. And also, if there is a Madame Pipi, please do think to leave her a euro or two. Their jobs are not easy to keep up the facilities there, especially with the amount of foot traffic that they get. But again, knowing that phrase and having a couple of coin pieces on you will serve you a long way. There's also an app, which I can link with Claudine later, that will help you find public toilets and toilets in general that are easy to access and use, which is very helpful.
Yeah. Usually when you go into a restaurant, I always tell people, I was like, as soon as I'm a terrace person, I always sit on the terrace. There's times that I go inside to the bathroom and then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's beautiful here. Why don't I sit here? But I just love a terrace. But when you walk in, like instantly, as soon as you walk in, look up, look down. If wherever you see that there's stairs, that's going to normally be where the toilet is. It's very rarely on the same floor. So you could basically, and it's, cafes are small there. So it's usually not, it's not too hard to find out where the toilets are. I've never used those ones on the street because I'm afraid to get stuck in there and it turning on the cleaning. But I'm one that just is like, oh, if you need to use the restroom, it's time to sit down and have a glass of wine or a coffee, then you're at a cafe. Most cafes, a lot of times, there's people that you just walk in and use it. I just feel really weird doing that and not paying for anything. But it's, if you kind of look like where you're going or what you're doing, then they're not really gonna, you wouldn't want to walk into Cafe Voltaire and do that, or someplace like that. But it's usually, I've never really had a big issue with trying to find a restroom.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we've checked packing, no pun intended. And again, if you find,
I'm a horrible packer. I'm like, oh, I need all of these things.
I'm very packing forward. I pack with a steamer. I've been in fashion for over 20 years. It's instilled in me, no wrinkles, but I always check. So I know that I'm going to have the liberty to do so. But again, as much as these boards and commentaries are very popular, don't let it dissuade what works for you. I see a lot of trolls and shaming, and I find it such a shame, and it really takes away from the pleasure and anticipation of packing for Paris and planning for Paris. It should be a joy, not a struggle. So the talkers are going to talk, but again, my big motto is Paris is for everybody. Let it be for you how it works for you, and don't let others dissuade you to do differently or say, why are you doing this? I just need to understand. No, you pack as you wish. You're going to have the experience that you'd plan for.
I mean, I've talked to ladies that have gone to Europe for 3 months with a carry-on. I couldn't go away. I couldn't do a weekend with a carry-on. And so God bless them. Good for you. But I don't know how they do that. But yeah. You pack what you want, which, which kind of leads to, which we didn't really have it on the list, but it does lead to, and this is a big thing on the message boards that we see out there, is how to dress in Paris. And we won't go too far into it, but there's two different schools on this. There is the who cares, wear whatever you want, be comfortable. And then there is the other one where it's like you want to dress to kind of fit in. And while yes, you want to keep your individualism and you want to have your style, but going over there and dressing unfortunately, without being rude, sometimes the way Americans dress, there is a bad side to that. Not because they're going to pick you out as an American, but who's going to pick you out as an American. And it makes you very susceptible to the pickpockets and the scams, because they instantly know you're an American, because they know Americans carry the good stuff. You have your phone on you. You have probably a lot of money. You have a lot of credit cards. You have a big camera, all of those things. So they know instantly that you're kind of going to be an easy target. You're also very distracted because you're just in awe of everything. And so those are kind of the little things, and Chrissy has posted about these kinds of things too. And she could definitely share her thoughts, but that's kind of the thing. You don't have to all of a sudden Google and look at how a Parisian dresses. Cause honestly, if you Google how to dress like a Parisian, that's not how they dress. There's the Breton stripes that a lot of people wear, but it is, the typical, there's nobody's wearing beret unless they're a tourist or a grandpa, but those kinds of things. So that is a really touchy subject on some of these online forums. And so that, it's kind of, what's sad is that the same thing as talking about how many times people are pickpocketed and the times that people are saying wear whatever you want, those go together. I hate to say it.
Definitely agree. And I don't think there are major modifications to make to what you're going to wear to blend in. I had written recently to not wear backpacks, and boy, did I get heat for that. What I meant was don't wear knapsacks as though you're going camping. We are going to want to step it up a little bit. I'm not saying that anybody dresses poorly, but if you invested even $20 in a pleather knapsack that's going to look very Euro chic, you're going to fit in better than somebody who's wearing a fanny pack who looks like they're carrying around $5,000 in euro cash. Even streetwear, the good news is Paris is becoming much more casual. And I'll show an example here, 2 examples. Yes, sneakers are absolutely everywhere. Thank goodness I almost broke my neck on the cobblestones. But it's a sneaker like this. It's a crisp, clean sneaker. Doesn't have to be white. Mine are. Nice and fresh. It's not what you're going to wear to go do your CrossFit training, your parkour training. It's something that is casual, but can be dressed up or down. You can wear it with everything from a business suit to a summer dress to shorts, keeping in mind the length of the shorts. Then for the women, again, if Meghan Markle can do it, so can we, ladies. Easy breezy ballet flat sneakers. These have lots of traction and lots of support. You can wear them day straight through to evening. I have worn these with dresses and gone to Michelin star restaurants with not so much as a blink. So when we say to dress the part in Paris, I'm not saying to go dress like Emily in Paris. You will stick out. It's just some minor modifications to your wardrobe that will make all the difference. It's not to be judgmental at all. These are mistakes that I have made. I have been targeted by pickpockets, people running up with the petitions. It's to enhance your own experience and help you to feel Parisian. Nobody wants to stick out like a sore thumb. Me too. So again, these are just minor suggestions. Use them or don't at your own discretion. But to echo Claudine, if you're wearing a target on your back, you'll be targeted. The good news is, as much fear as these boards instill about crime in Paris and you'll be pickpocketed and dear God, hide. No, listen, in this city, if pickpocketing is the biggest crime that they're worried about, we are well ahead of the curve. Like any city, you just have to be aware of your possessions, keep them in a zip, zip your handbag. Don't carry those gorgeous totes that are wide open, as beautiful as they are. Gentlemen, please do not put your wallet and your iPhone in your back pocket. Put it either in your front pocket or keep your phone in your hand. Do not leave your phone on your table. This has become the biggest grab and run going, because me too, what do we all do when we sit down at a gorgeous Paris cafe with a beautiful meal in front of us? We take a picture for our Instagram and then we put our phone down and chat to our friends and companions. I've made this mistake and almost lost my phone. There's no judgment here, but stow your belongings away and just be mindful. Nobody's out to attack you. Pickpocketers will not be violent. They're not going to be grabbing you at your collar, stealing your items. They don't want a fuss. They don't want a scene. So just be careful, be alert as you would in any city, especially on the metro. It's like sardines in the metro. We love French sardines, but maybe not so much in the trains.
Yeah. Yeah, you just kind of wanted, I would just tell people it's very safe. I've never, knock on wood, had any problems. But you just want to make sure you're aware of where you are and where your stuff is and all of that kind of, that just keep that in mind. And you'll be okay.
Yeah. And Lori just made a great point. They will try to reach into men's front pockets as well. So do be cautious. And just a quick note on some scams here. I've done a post on it quite recently because the summer months are here. We'll all be approached. If anybody approaches you with a clipboard, no. Anybody tells you to take a gold ring that they think is yours that fell on the ground. No. Anybody trying to tie a friendship bracelet. And the newest one, which blows my mind, is police officers, which are obviously scammers, walking around to see who they think is a tourist, saying, "Look, we need to check your currency to make sure you haven't gotten counterfeit currency." Then they want to check your passport and they grab them and go. If anybody approaches you in police wear and just say, "No, sir, I have no cash. I've left my passport in the hotel safe," even if you don't have a hotel safe, just be aware that scammers are looking for people who are uncomfortable and unaware of their surroundings. Walk with a purpose in your step. And one little side trick here is if you're lost on the metro, happens to me every day when I'm there, get close to the wall as you can the minute you get out of the train. You will be fined if you're holding up French Parisian pedestrians getting to where they need to go. So if you're lost, no shame to it. Go against the wall, leave your phone in your pocket for a minute, wait for the mad rush to pass, then get your bearings and go where you need to go. I'm a big fan of the metro, by the way.
I know Jean has a question, so you could jump in, but I was going to just also say that anytime anybody, 9 times out of 10, if they walk up to you and say, "Do you speak English?" Don't make eye contact. Don't act like you even know what they're saying and just keep going. Because most of the time that's what the girls with the clipboards do. And now they have a bunch of young men with them. Pretty much anybody that walks up. And if you just trust your gut, if you see this person coming and they say, "Do you speak English?" then just don't even look at them. Don't even act like you know. And then they pretty much leave you alone. So that's a big thing. But what was I think Jane had something to say.
No, I was just going to contribute something. If you especially travel by metro, but generally, you should not speak loudly.
Yeah.
You should not be talking English loudly. It's better to whisper or say nothing.
Yeah.
Because that also will make you a target. And in the street, you should just speak very quietly to the people who you're with.
Yeah, and that's just in general, it's generally, I mean, Parisians and Europeans kind of talk quieter. I mean, sometimes depending on where you are, if you're at a wine bar, at a bar, and it's late in the evening, it does get louder. But for the most part, they kind of, Americans are very loud. And you don't really notice that until you're not here. And then you're just like, oh my goodness.
For sure.
Yeah.
And the entire society was based on keeping intrigues and secrets at the royal court. It's genetically bred now to speak barely above a whisper, whereas Americans, we're coming in strong. We're here to play. It's just being very cognizant of your surroundings. If you notice that you're starting to get maybe a little smirk or a dirty look, or even told to quiet down. Again, I know that we're so proud of who we are, but we are on their turf. We have to, live within the social mores that we're exploring. And it's a wonderful environment to be in. And you do get used to it rather quickly. Again, it's not something I say to instill fear or dissuasion for travel. It's just something to be aware of. And one more thing that I want to speak about too, is I know Martha says that she's traveling with her daughters age 12 and 14. One more little scam that I noticed last summer when I took my niece is a couple of men approached her going, "Are you Marie? Are you Marie?" Trying to make it seem like they're, meeting a date that they'd met on not Kindle, whatever the dating app is. So some young men are approaching, beautiful young women asking if they're Marie. This is a scam trying to get the girl engaged. So just have your daughters be cognizant of that. Naturally, at that age, they'll be with you at all the times, but it's just something to pass around. I know we all have young ladies in our life that we want them to feel safe and secure on the streets. Again, Paris is a safe city by far. We're talking about all the worst case scenarios so that you can enjoy your best case scenario.
Yes, for sure. I have some more questions. Yeah, I have another thing that when it comes to the luggage and packing is I've had people ask if they arrive early. So sometimes, a lot of the flights that come in from the US come in really early. They come in at, you get there at 8 a.m. or so. And, if you're staying in a hotel, which is, usually just let them know in advance, even like a week before, just let them know and say, I will be arriving. I'd love to be able to check in. If they're able to do that, if they're, depending on what's turning over, then they are able to do that. Otherwise, they'll just stow your luggage. If it is an Airbnb or a Vrbo that you're staying at, do also let them know. They'll usually tell you to check in as it gets closer, to check back with them. Sometimes you can just drop your bags there while, someone's cleaning and then come back. Or what I've done in the past too is just gone and found the closest cafe to there. And then, you have your taxi or whichever drop you off there. And then you're, and make sure like you could even Google Earth it and look to see like, is there a good place? Is this a good place that I could go and roll up with my, 3 suitcases and be able to sit there without, being, in everybody's way. And most of the time the hotels will, there was, one time that I was going to get there, like I got there, I think I landed at like 5 a.m, which was amazing. I got into Paris in like 30 minutes and I was on the Pont des Arts watching the sunrise. But oh boy, did it make for a long day until 2 p.m. when I could check in. And there was a hotel I could drop my bags off and you pay like 10 euros per bag for them to hold it. And then I just basically was cruising around the city until the cafes open. And I think it was a weekend, so it was like nothing open until like 9 a.m. But those are, just check with them in advance. Especially if it's a hotel, it's really easy to be able to just do that. And then also like one time I was coming in really early and I even asked if I could just book it and come in, if you find a Airbnb and the price is good, just put your mind at ease and just book it for the day before and then just say, hey, I'm not going to be there till such and such. Some of them will be kind of a pain about like, oh, well, I'm not coming there that early to get you the key. That's when it's kind of great to find the Airbnbs that have the self check-in, that they don't have to come there and do it, because then you could just check in and get in there whenever you need to.
Yeah. And you make a good point about possibly booking the night before. If anybody's traveling with any kind of mobility or medical items that they might need straight away in the morning, it really is best to book from the night before. This way, if you do get in at around 5 a.m., as many of us do, I'll give the example. So someone in my family uses a machine for COPD. We needed it right when we landed. We were really fortunate that our room was ready, which is very uncommon, especially now that travel is really picking back up. So if there's any kind of machine, medication, et cetera, that you'll need right away, it might be best to spend that extra money, especially if the price is right, for that assurance that when you get there, you can take care of business straight away for health, comfort, safety, just ease of mind. And speaking of getting to Paris, I just really quickly want to talk about, I've been seeing this question more and more where people get into Charles de Gaulle or Orly and go into a taxi and find that all of a sudden they're being charged much more than the flat rate that they read about on the Facebook pages. This is because they likely went with somebody who approached them seeming very professional, very normal out of the gate. Unfortunately, yes, you'll get where you want to go. It's going to cost you a bit more. You must go to a designated taxi stand at both airports to get a proper taxi for the low fare of, I think it's 55 euros.
53 for the right bank and 58 for the left bank as of now. And Orly, I think it's in the 30s. I think it's like 35 and 30 something.
Perfect. And if you decide that you want to use an Uber, I'm actually going to go a little against the grain here and advise not to do that, because if it's raining when you land, you're going to encounter a really big difference in fare. It's not going to be your flat rate. I'm a big fan of the G7 taxi service. It's a Parisian taxi. It's an app. It works exactly the same as Uber with a much consistent fare rate. And as well, I feel like we're supporting the Parisian taxi driver community a little bit. You know, Uber's doing okay, but some of these local drivers could use a little bit of a push, especially not after driving for 2 years. That's my recommendation.
And honestly, I don't know. I mean, I would just always like to when you're leaving the airport, stick with Lyft or with a taxi. The Uber, because of the surge pricing, there's times that it could be twice what it would be with the taxi. And I don't even know where you'd get the Uber. Like, they're not letting them in where you get the taxis. I'm not, when I land in a few weeks, I'll look, but I just would always, and those guys, that's another thing. When they ask you for a taxi, do not make eye contact. Just keep walking, find the taxi, because they can get actually pretty, they're pretty aggressive. And I even had like there was a couple in front of me and I was like, keep going. It's this, don't do this, don't go with them. And the other guy started yelling at me.
Oh, they can be aggressive. They could reach for your luggage handle, like they're going to help you carry your bag, you know, you poor jet lagged person. Just keep on going. Again, a firm step in your stride will take you a long way. If any scammer thinks you know where you're going and are going there quickly, they'll leave you alone. They want an easy target. They don't want a difficult target. And somebody just posted as well about accommodations. Yes, when you book, ensure that if you're going to need a lift or air conditioner, that you are certainly aware that they have these before you put down any deposit. Paris is a hot city, but it is wired differently. They don't have the electrical bandwidth for aircon like we use it. So unless your hotel, if you're using a hotel, is at least 4 stars, odds are you will not have air conditioner or an elevator. That 4th star is really that key indicator when you book about those 2 specific amenities.
Yeah. And also, if you stick with the American brand of the Marriotts and the Hiltons, they have, you know, there's like I think it's the Marriott Vendôme or the Hilton Vendôme. They have a bunch of other ones. If you find those names they're those American companies, that's where you usually could pretty much guarantee they're going to have air conditioning as well. Just because it's, you know, it's American. I mean, who knows who owns them now, but those American ones will usually have that. And when it comes to the online apartment rentals, sometimes go way down into the comments, like go through the comments and look through the comments, because that's where you sometimes will actually find like, oh, somebody will say, oh, it's on the 6th floor and no elevator, because sometimes they don't put that in the top, you know, info. So you really just always kind of run through and just read through the comments to make sure, because you know, even if you're like really fit, when you've been walking 10 or 12 miles on cobblestones all day in Paris, and then you get back and you have to go up 6 flights of stairs, it's literally like death.
Oh, and she's Ellen is noting that Airbnb doesn't even have that filter anymore on their booking site. So that's something definitely to check ahead for.
Yeah.
But while we were kind of touching on the topic of getting around, I really definitely want to also address the RER and the metro. I tend to take a taxi when I land. Many people prefer to take the RER. It is very easy to get that ticket. Once you're in town, I cannot recommend the metro and the bus system enough. Again, I know there's been a lot of chatter on the popular planning boards that only tourists take the metro. Family, I have lived in Paris. More Parisians take the metro than tourists. It is always crowded. It is always active. It is easy to navigate. A couple of tips here. Everybody's getting more familiar with the Navigo Pass now that the paper tickets are being phased out. For us non-French people, there is a tricky system where if you land on a Saturday, the pass starts on a Monday, which is such a bummer because you have 2 full days of, are you going to walk everywhere, or are you going to take a taxi or an Uber everywhere? I'm going to say something a little controversial here. I'm going to say that you should spend the money on 2 days of the 7-day Navigo card. And here's the reason. You're going to be tired, maybe not wanting to walk everywhere. It might be raining the day you land. I can assure you that the €30 fare that you'll be paying for 2 days will be significantly less than taking taxis everywhere if walking is not an option. These passes are incredibly easy to get. You must bring a passport picture, and a little insider tip. I put in my check bag a teeny tiny scissor, because when you get to the counter, our passport pictures are a different size than the pictures we need for our Metro Pass. Some of the ticket takers are a little hesitant to start cutting up pictures. They like to pretend we don't have some scissors. I have whipped out those little sewing kit scissors more times than I can tell you with people that I've traveled with, and you never get turned away because they're like, all right, we'll cut your picture. So you bring an extra passport picture. You can get your Navigo Pass at any metro station that has a human teller, meaning not just machines. And again, I say spend that extra money up front, pay once, cry once, because sometimes when you land walking 2 full days, you'll be spending a lot more in taxis than you would on just the pass.
They are supposed to be, they're going to finally do it, which is funny because there's so many things that Europe is advanced in, but they're finally going to have an app. I believe it's next year for your iPhone. Currently, they already have it for Android. So where you could use it, you could put your pass in there, you could buy your tickets in there on Android. It's funny that, you know, everywhere else usually it's iPhone first, but a lot more French people have Android than they have iPhone. But soon that'll be hopefully mid next year. So that will be kind of nice too, because you could just, you know, charge it up, upload on your phone. I think there's a way to upload your Navigo to the phone app, but I don't think you could purchase things with it. We'll have to look into that.
You can top up on the RATP app. So if you have that card, you can add cash, but you can't start fresh.
Yeah.
Ellen's making a good point about Navigo Easy, where no picture is needed. And then she's also making a great tech point about taking a picture and shrinking it and then just printing it on standard paper, which is fantastic. Ellen is super tech savvy. She's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, 20 tickets. Yeah. And the thing about the little tickets, which I'm kind of like, they're kind of so nostalgic, and like, as I'm going through things, I'm finding them in all over the place. But
Yeah.
I had the worst luck. I would buy the 10 tickets, put them in my wallet. 2 of them would work. And then by the time I needed the third, I barely take the metro. I walk everywhere. So it's not like it's an everyday occurrence. But I'd go to use that third one. There was one time I went to go at Place Colette under the beautiful Otinel, metro cover, and I had 7 of them, and I was feeding them all through. None of them would work because they demagnetize so quickly. Yeah. And I've been told that if you take them and show it to them, they'll give you new ones. But I mean, I've more times than not had these tickets that ended up I wasn't even able to use them. So it's nice to be able to have that pass now. And then you just have it with you, and you could keep it. If you're coming back once a year, just keep it in your, slide it into your passport when you leave. Another thing I always tell people to do, and especially right now, before, if you're going to Paris in the next 2 years or so, what I always tell people to do is on your last full day, if you know you're going back shortly or within a year, go to the bank machine, get out €300, take that, stick it, when you come back, you just stick it in your passport, throw it in the safe. And then when you get there, you already have the cash with you. You're not gonna have to figure out this first few days how to stop and go to the ATM. Don't use the ATMs at the airport. The fees are out of control. But right now the euro to the dollar is even. The other day, it actually even went down. It was like the dollar, it was like 98.5 cents to the dollar. So if you can, go now to the bank and go and get some of that money exchanged. The fee, it's not going to be 1-to-1 there because the bank adds on their bit, but it's still going to be, I mean, it hasn't been this low in 20 years, and you're saving 20% of what you would spend to what you would have spent last November. Yeah. So it's crazy right now. So if you can, go to your bank and order euros, because you're going to save money. Or if you're planning on going and you have an apartment you always rent, and maybe you do it privately with somebody, say, hey, I'm coming next year. Can I give you $1,000 €1,000 now, just because it's going to be $1,000. So those are, all those little things like your Navigo, euros, all of that, come back, throw them in your passport. And then when you're getting ready to leave and you arrive, you have everything already done.
It's true. And one thing I do want to mention about ATMs is if you decide to use the ATMs in Paris and you're walking up to these machines, because the machines are not like in the States, it's not within an enclosed building, it's on a storefront or a building front. And you're heading up there and you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to grab €40 just to get through, get a crepe. If you notice, I'm going to say either 2 or 3, what I'll call teenagers just hanging around, that is not the ATM for you to use. They are trying to skim your card. They will not be violent or anything, but they're going to come up and say, oh, I can help you. This machine was broken. Let me help you. Don't do it. They might not even take your card physically, but there's these machines that can skim the info right off of that. So just, again, being super aware of your environment. These ATMs are incredibly safe and easy to use, but just checking for your surroundings to make safe. And I'm seeing RS Phone had asked about booking a bus ticket. I'm not familiar with how to buy them on the bus, but it is the same system of either Easy Navigo, Navigo Pass, or the cards while they still exist. But the cards are going out real quick.
And I know that you used to be able to sometimes go on the bus and be like, here's €1.50 or whatever the fare was. But a lot of times they kind of don't do that as much now. I always, for ATMs, I always, like Elizabeth said, I always go inside. So there's, and you have to pick up, sometimes the bank is closed. That branch is closed on Mondays. Sometimes you go to the bank and the bank actually turns the ATMs off on the weekend. Like they just don't work. But I always wait and do it on a day where I could go inside, and just pop in there just because, I just don't want to do it out on the street. But those little things, but it is funny. Usually sometimes you go to the bank machine and it'll say your card doesn't work here, and you go to the bank machine right next to it and it does. Or some days it gives you the options of 10s and €20, and then some days it only gives you €100, and you're like, oh great, they're gonna love that when I stop for my €1.50 coffee. So it's all of those, the biggest thing is you kind of have to just go into it with, sometimes things are just gonna be wonky.
Yeah, it's true. And then speaking to money matters, I've seen this question so much in the last week alone on all of the forums and boards. Tipping. Paris is changing and evolving just like the rest of the world. When you go out to eat, 99% of the time you'll have either service compris or tip included. You don't need to add anything on. Feel no guilt whatsoever if you don't. However, if you wish to round up a couple of euros, please do feel free to do so. The same thing for any cafe or, coffee shop that you're frequenting. They are getting more and more accustomed to travelers tipping, so much so that now when you get a credit card slip for the restaurant, it'll have a line for the tip because people continually add it, which is great. I'm all about supporting the economy, but do not feel obliged to do so. It should be included in the cost of your meal and well indicated on your receipts.
Yeah, and be careful. There is a couple places. This has happened to me at Cafe Marly, and I've heard about this happening there to many people and a few other restaurants that sometimes they'll come up and say, oh, did you want to leave a tip? And you're like, no, the tip's included. And they're like, no, actually it's not, because they know that they're probably not going to see you again because they think that you're a tourist. And every time, and I go by the Cafe Marly like almost every single day I walk by there, and every time I walk by, I'm like, oh, because the guy, he was so forceful about it that I was just like, okay, fine. And I was like, and it was my birthday and I got scammed, but I gave him I think I gave him an extra €10. And it still infuriates me when I go by there. But be careful, because that is something that sometimes people say that happens. But I always, at my favorite places, the places that I go or the places that I know people that are working, I always give them a tip. Even if it's, coffee in the morning and it's €1. But it's, if you round up, is what I always tell people, if it's from the airport and they've helped throw your luggage into the back and you have a bunch of luggage, then, you give them like €4 or €5, and they're always like, très gentil, madame. Like they're always so nice. And just, it goes a long way.
Yeah. And while you're planning for adventures, I just want to say a lot of us tend to book excursions or tours, which I'm a big fan of. I cannot recommend, especially Claudine's tours of the Louvre enough. reach
Oh.
outside of your standard comfort zone. You know, if you've never been a great cook, sign up for a little cooking class, a walking market tour. You know, I love the castles, but I decided to do a trip to Normandy one day to see the D-Day beaches, just to try to experience something new. And these are the most enriching things that you will experience over there. I know that we're all very much into, you know, the greatest hits of Paris. We've all seen them and done them. Now we're all fortunate enough, I feel, to be returning to this city to have new experiences. Don't just automatically sign up for what you think you would do. Really try to reach out there. And again, I say with all freedom, I didn't think I would ever sign up for a tour of the Louvre. I figured I know what art I like. I'm clever enough. I was wrong. I learned so much. It changed my viewpoint of art so much. It opened up a new world entirely. And when you go outside of your comfort zones, you become even more brazen and emboldened to just, you know, become a flaneur for a couple of hours, really not even having the fear of getting lost, just enjoying the experience. These are the times to really just branch out, and you'd be shocked and delighted about what you'll learn about not only the city, which is great and that's good, but about yourself and your own travel abilities and your own personal interests. I think it could be truly eye-opening.
Yeah, and I see all that. Thank you, ladies. I see all the lovely people I've given tours to the Louvre there in the comments too. Thank you so much. But yeah, it is, you know, that's the thing, especially with the Louvre. I do lots of tours in Paris, but the Louvre has become kind of the most popular and the one I do the most, just because every day on Instagram and my newsletters and everything, I share tons and tons of history of the Louvre and the art. Something about a place like the Louvre and some of those places, they are massive and you could get lost very easily in there. The Orsay is a lot easier to manage. If you are coming there and you're like, I've always wanted to go to the Marais, or I've always wanted to go to Saint-Germain, you can do those things on your own. The thing with sometimes doing it as a tour is you're going to do it with somebody that knows how to get you around and get you through those places. It's not just about showing you that, but it's about maximizing your time. And a lot of people go to Paris, you know, a lot of the people I see on here are, you know, very lucky that they get to spend weeks at a time in Paris, you know, maybe going once a year. And, you know, I mean, there's nothing better than that. But some people are going to Paris for 3 days. And when you go and you're only going for 3 or 4 days, or you're doing it in between London and Italy, you know, you want to maximize that time as much as possible, but not to the point where you are going to miss the beauty of everything. Don't go through and just a checklist and say, I'm going to the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, the Orsay, the Pompidou before lunch. It's not going to happen, and you're not going to retain any of it or enjoy any of it. And so like I have people reach out to me and like, how much can you show me in the Louvre in 3 hours? I was like, I could show you what you would take you 3 days, because of the fact that, you know how to get through, you know how to do it, and you know where to spend that time looking. So doing tours and doing that, I mean, I did one of those bus tours that took me out to Giverny, because I was like, this was years ago, I'm not sure how to get there. I know they're going to take me, drop me off. Once I was there, I was on my own. But some of those things where it's like, it's just kind of some of that, you know, do it smarter rather than harder. And there is somebody else asked in here, I think it was Flo, asked about tours. There's lots and lots of tours in Paris. I do trip planning for people. And if it's not something that I do and you want me to do for you, I know lots of really great people. I'm putting together a list of people that do really great in-depth tours. You do have to be careful, because sometimes these tours, especially if they're very, like, you know, 15 euros for 3 hours of the Louvre, like that might sound like a good price to you, but you're going to get 15 euros worth of the Louvre. I've walked by and heard people say that Napoleon stole the Mona Lisa, which I just almost walked up and said something to the tour guide that was French. I just was like, oh, but you know, just there's a lot of people out there that, you know, they just kind of like, and on your left is this, you know, like what was that old movie? We're walking with the Dave, or I love that movie. But you know, those are kind of things that will do the best to maximize your time. You know, I always say, if you're going to be there for 4 days and that's 8 meals, you want to make sure that all 8 of those meals are amazing. You don't want to have, and I still do it. We all do it that've been there a lot of times. There's days you're like, well, that was $40 down the drain. That was not great. But you don't, if you're there for 8 days, it's best to have, you know, or 4 days, you want to have those 8 great meals. And so that's, you know, and you kind of have to be careful of, you know, being the keyboard jockey out there, Googling a lot of those things, or say the top 10 restaurants or the top 10 things. A lot of those are not being actually vetted. They're just, a lot of that is somebody's taking it from somebody else's article that's putting it to another article that's putting it to another article that's not necessarily like they went there. There's restaurants I used to tell people go to all the time, and I've recently gone back there and I'm like, yeah, I want to go there again. Like, it's not as great as it was. So, those are all those kinds of things that, you have to, kind of, even if you've been there 20 times, there's still things that you could learn and figure out too, because it's endless in Paris.
And give yourself the grace to make mistakes. The best laid plans are going to have hiccups. You're going to lose stuff. You're going to get, a little theft here. I'm turned around there. I lost my Navigo card. Give yourself the grace. It happens to Parisians. These are all the natural parts of travel. You can reset as many times as you'd like. Do not let it deter from your experience, and just keep traveling and keep exploring Paris. There is so much to see. It's, there was an old discount store that used to say, oh, it's never the same store twice. Paris is very much the same. It's as infinite as its history is. It just keeps, it's like another onion, another layer. You will always find things that you didn't know, or a new way to view it. I was putting up pictures yesterday of a view of the Eiffel Tower. I'm like, I cannot figure out which angle this is. Someplace that I've never been. It's on the list now. So these kind of forums really lend themselves to the camaraderie of exploring those nooks and crannies. There is always more to this to see, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. So
no, it's endless. It is endless. And then you just go and sit at a cafe and have a glass, when you lost at Navigo, or you got stuck and you couldn't get out, which that's always happened to people too. When you lose your ticket and then you can't get out, then you just go and sit at a cafe and have a glass of champagne and just look at everybody walking by, and everything's better.
it's true.
Does anybody have anything they want to add in? Or Ron, I did see your comment at Cafe Marley. I went to lunch there with my friend Ron and Debbie after I took them to the Louvre, and it was the gal behind us had a very full tray of bottles and dishes and everything, and it went crashing down right behind us. Oh, June,
Claudine?
the churches are the greatest. Even if you're not religious, or you're thinking that's not my jam. If you like art, if you like architecture, go into any church, every church that you walk past. I've written articles about how you can see the greatest artists in French history in the churches for free. You will find Delacroix and Rubens and Lesueur, all of these artists just hanging in the churches for free.
Yeah.
Claudine, I just wanted to add, if you find yourself taking more than a few taxis, be sure, and they do accept credit cards, be sure to ask for a receipt with the date on it, because they might put a different amount. And be sure to check that receipt before you get out of the taxi. Yeah, a lesson learned.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a lesson learned. Yeah, I had a group of ladies, wonderful ladies, that would sometimes, because I was walking them into the ground, the poor things, and they would take a taxi at the end of the night, and they were just like, I think he was turning down the wrong street. I've heard these people, I've never had that problem. But I've heard where they're saying they might go a little slower, or they take an extra street or something like that. And if you're not familiar with Paris and the streets, then that's where, that's kind of where the whole G7 Uber thing kind of works, where, like Chrissy was saying, the G7 app is amazing. You could use it just like Uber. I use it more than I ever used Uber. But you could put in there, like, if you're unsure and you don't know, if you want to get in the taxi and you're not saying, take me to, Montmartre, and you need to go to some random address, and you're like, oh my God, I don't know how to say that. I'm going to butcher this. Use those apps, because you could put the address in there. They pick you up, they take you right there. And it's kind of less, you kind of know it's going to be a more of a direct route than you just grabbing somebody off the street.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's a good idea with the receipt. And if you do have a credit, if you arrive to the airport and you don't have cash, make sure you ask them if they take credit cards, because not all of them do. A majority of them will, but not all of them do.
Yeah. Ellen's touching on a great question here about cell phones. So when we're traveling, we all have our cell phones. She's saying, what is the difference between orange and international plans? To me, this is a very personal decision to make. I have tried to use orange SIM cards more time than I can say, and I've just not had great luck. So I tend to go with my own phone carrier plan, but I'm fortunate enough that it's quite easy for me to do. I have AT&T, easy breezy, but I have people who do nothing else but go over and get an orange SIM card. I think it's really what you feel will work best for you, for your financial situation, because they do vary from plan to plan. But I tend to go international plan on the phone that I use, and I've not had any issues.
Yeah, and I know that the international plans they just get better and better. It used to be, it was incredibly expensive. I heard, I don't know which of the carrier, it might be Verizon or AT&T, that it's $10 a day until you hit $100, and then it's capped out. It used to be $10 a day, my old job, and I'd take my work phone, and I came back after 22 days and they gave me a bill for $220. At that point, that is when I ordered the orange holiday SIM card. You could get it actually on Amazon. That's what I use. I use the same one. It's my French number. I have a French number. You could order the holiday SIM card at Amazon. It's like $49. And that gives you 2 weeks. So if you're going to be there a short amount of time, then I would say don't bother. If you're going to be there 3 or 4 weeks, that's when it's kind of good to have the SIM card. The very first SIM card I ever had, when I arrived the next time, thinking, oh, this is great, just pop it in my phone right when I land and it's great. It wouldn't work. I had to go buy a new one. But if you're going to return, you go and it comes when you get it. It comes with a little postcard. You register it. You send it in. If you only go, say, once a year, every couple years, and you want to keep that number, you just go online every 6 months and just fill it up with like the €10 plan, and that keeps your number good. So you always have the number. I have the French SIM card, and that's what I always use. And again, just like Chrissy said, it's totally up to you. But it's actually great. If you do have to call back international, you only get an hour of calls. But what I do is, like, for my mom and my sister, I just tell them to go on WhatsApp. And so I'm like, when I'm there, you use WhatsApp, because then you could call for free. You could send those text messages. And you don't have to really go into using that 1 hour. But I mean, I've used it and hotspotted it and streamed on it and done it for hours and hours and hours, and have never gone over what you would spend in a month.
Yeah. I can't see who said it, but you do need to make sure that your phone is unlocked for that SIM
Yes.
card to work.
Yeah.
And then just to answer Gail very quickly, it should be the G7 taxi app. It should be a red square that has the letters G7 in white, or
Yeah.
vice versa. It should be
Yeah,
that.
I think it's a big, huge, I was gonna see if pull it up on mine. It's it just has the big G7. And I think it's red.
I think it is red. Yeah. And usually when you download it, there
Oh,
comes like
white
little
and-
with the taxi driving through it. So
Yeah.
very
you can see
user
it.
friendly. And
White with, yeah.
if you are using the G7, I didn't mean to speak over you, Claudine, forgive me.
Okay.
Make sure that you have already turned on your credit card for international service if it's your first time loading your credit card into the system, or else it will bounce back as either a fraud, or they won't allow the account to be created. So if you've not downloaded it, perhaps wait until the day of your trip when you've already turned on your credit card for international travels to do that. Just a little time saver there.
Yeah, and one of the funny things about Uber, and this was a huge thing in the French papers about a year ago, is a lot of times when we're going about our day, you put your phone into like the battery saving mode, or whatever that little thing is, on your iPhone. You slide it down, you do that, and then it just basically it turns off all of those things that suck up your battery during the day, like all of the notifications, and just you only get important things. But they did this really interesting article and this huge investigation into Uber and the difference in price when your phone is in battery saving mode and normal mode. And they had all of these people, and they had two like iPhones or two, Androids right next to each other, one in battery mode, one in regular. And if your phone was in battery mode, every single time you were paying €4 to €5 more for the same exact ride as your phone in normal. And they said because they know that your phone, you seem desperate because you're trying to save your phone and you're like, maybe I really need to get this ride. So that's one thing. I don't think it happens with the G7, but that's one of those things I think about every time if I'm someplace and I'm trying to get an Uber and I'm in Paris, because I put mine in that battery mode all the time because I'm using it, taking a million photos in museums all day long. And so I thought that was really interesting. And it's kind of like 4 or 5 euros adds up.
Mm-hmm. That's a hot chocolate for me.
I know. That's half a coupe of champagne.
Gail is still deciding between the two. Gail, let me check on that. My phone is on the other side of the room for do not disturb, but I want to make sure we give you the right app. I can pass to Claudine and she can reach out if I don't have your contact. We want to make sure you get the right one going. It's a super.
Mine is a white square with G7 in red. Are you on iPhone? Because maybe, do you have Android or are you iPhone, Chrissy?
I am iPhone.
Okay. Yeah, so on iPhone. Huh. Yeah, so it should be the white square with red letters. Thanks,
Perfect.
Angela. Yeah. Did you guys have any other questions? Or any other great topics? Little hacks that you use? I know I see so many people in here that I know that are there all the time, and I'm sure everybody has lots of them.
Oh, Sharon makes a great point. Yes, sometimes
Oh.
G7 will add a large charge that will sit in your pending account of your credit card for a couple of days. That's not the actual fee. What G7 is doing, much like a supermarket would do online, is they're making sure that the credit card can carry that amount and that it's not a fake account.
Yeah, I always schedule G7 to take me to the airport.
Yep.
They always arrive early, especially like I seem to always get those flights that I got to leave at 4 a.m. They will always arrive early. They're always really great. The other thing is G7 has Wi-Fi in all of their taxis, and it's the same number. So every time you get into a G7, your phone instantly goes to Wi-Fi. There's been times I've been sitting at a cafe, and like when I used to have my old job, and I'd have my work phone too, it would all of a sudden I'd look later and be like, why did I get text messages? It's in airplane mode. Well, because I'd used it in a G7. And sometimes if I'm sitting at a cafe, there's a G7 sitting at the light, it ends up triggering the Wi-Fi. So that's kind of a nice thing to have. So if you do get to the airport and you still, your phone doesn't work or something, always another thing about that, turn your phone on and off. Sometimes that fixes it. But if you get in a G7, you'll have Wi-Fi. You could do whatever you need to do on the way to, telling them you're on your way to the apartment or something. But yeah, G7, I mean, I prefer G7 over Uber. It's also, it's just a little bit of like this, it's professional. It's not, and I think the Uber drivers in France, especially Paris, I mean, that is their job. It's not, here, I've had wonderful people pick me up because they work by the airport. And so every morning on the way in Portland, on the way to the airport, on the way to work, they pick people up, take them to the airport, they gives them a little extra money. The Uber, I think most of the Uber people in Paris are like, that's all they're doing. But with G7, you kind of are like, I kind of just feel like this is, I don't know. It's maybe that false sense of security, but I feel better.
If it's okay, before we go, I do want to swing back to language really quickly, because I know that I said the Holy Trinity before of just those 3 words, but I do want to emphasize that we're in a foreign city speaking their national language. Give it a try. I'm going to give a personal example here just to give people the courage to do so. I had taken my niece and nephew last summer for their first trip to Paris. They do not speak the language. So we sat on the plane and I said, you guys are ordering your own meals. We're good to go, right? Absolutely, Aunt Kissy. So we get there, my nephew wants a beer. So in French, even though he was trying, it came out as, hi, a beer, thank you, please, I would like, in the most broken French you could ever imagine. And so he's mortified beyond measure because the waiter gave it a little chuckle. It didn't matter how bad it was, and it was bad. They cover with picture postcards. Would you like another beer? How about for your grandmother? I mean, they are charmed beyond measure when we try. We do not, as Americans, if a French person comes up to us and makes, terrible grammatical mistakes, we're not like, oh, you cow. We think it's the most charming thing in the world. French people think very much the same. It is not the grammar that's counting. It's the intention behind being willing to put yourself out on a limb to fit in. It goes with the clothes, it goes with the packing. All of this is a package deal on fitting in with the French culture. You will charm people even if you make mistakes. I'm fluent in French and mistakes every day. They don't mind. So don't feel timid to try, and don't feel like you've ruined your whole meal and reputation in the city if you make mistakes. Go for it. It will be acknowledged and appreciated. You will get amazing service.
And sometimes, it's like what's always, and I'm sure this still happens to you and everybody else, when you're like, yeah, I got this. I get it. You walk in there and you're like, bonjour, and then like, je voudrais, you say what you want, and then they answer you in English, and you're like, yeah, I thought I was doing good.
Yes.
But sometimes I have French friends that they want to practice their English, and it's
Yeah.
like, you're not helping me though, but you're not like, I'm trying to speak French. Sometimes it's as long as you just try, that's exactly, they're just happy you try. And then sometimes, then you sometimes get those ones where I remember going into a place and I asked for the Saint Honoré, the the pastry, but I said it as Saint Honoré, and they were like, what? Like I was just like, seriously, like, you got the honorary part there, and I'm standing here. You sell 7 things. Like, you didn't get that. You couldn't figure that out. But, I was just like, okay. But, at least you tried it. I think she was really annoyed with me, but I was like, I won. I walked out and I had my pastry and I was happy as can be. So it is, as long as you, as you said, as long as you try, and you don't have to know everything. People are like, I've done 3 months of Duolingo, I'm ready to go. It's like, well, that's great if you need to, or like, what was the other one? Rosetta Stone. I did that one time, and I was like, I just spent 2 weeks on, basically it started out with like the different tenses of running. I don't need this.
Yes.
But
Ellen brought up a good point too. Bring that notebook, write it down. We can all read the same, especially if you're getting into a taxi and they're pretending that they don't understand at all what you're saying and you've not been able to program it in. Just write it down, hand it to them. And again, give yourself patience. We're operating jet lag, different time zone, completely different culture. Just don't lose patience with yourself.
yeah. And then, Google Translate, there's times that I'm going to go into some place, like I have to go into the post office, or I have to go into the bank, or I have to go do something. And like, these aren't the words that these aren't the words off the top of your head. And I will go to Google Translate and I will put it in there and put my earbuds in and listen to it. Some Google Translate isn't always 100%, but you're going to get the base, those important words that you need to say, they're going to figure it out. But I'll put it in there and I'll listen to it and I'll practice it. And then I'll walk in and be like, say what I need to say. And usually it's okay until and then when I had to go, and my allergies were horrible in the spring, and I didn't bring my neti pot with me. And I swear by that thing is the best thing ever. That was a lot of fun, going into the pharmacy and saying, because I didn't know what the word was for neti pot. And so you do a lot of miming, and you're like lo e nes e, and you're like, and the guy, I think he just was having a great time just watching me try to do this. And then he's like, oh, and he gets it on the box. It says neti pot. But there's those things, miming and doing those kinds of things, usually you could always, I've never had a situation where you go into a wall where it's like, they have no idea what I'm saying. I have no idea. That never really happens anymore.
No.
And just have fun with it. Don't be, the biggest thing is just, I've had, and I still am not completely over it, of just being like, especially if it's somebody I don't know, I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to at least try. And if they think I'm an idiot and they think I got it wrong, I don't care. So that's the biggest thing, is that you don't want to, you have to get over that. But there was a study during COVID that said that people are more apt to speaking in a foreign language and doing it more precisely after they've had 2 drinks.
Oh, interesting.
Which
I
is
like that.
true. It really is true. So, by the time you've had those 2 glasses of champagne, you're just, carrying on a conversation. Oh, Ellen getting tampons.
Ellen, for a riot. And just one more thing that I'll put out just for safety, and you won't need it, but should you encounter an emergency, it's not 911. It's 112. And it's the same thing for SAMU, which is ambulance, for the police, for the fire brigade, 112. Again, you won't need it now that you know it. It's one of those things where you never want to be in a situation going, how does 911 not work? It's not a global thing. So 112 is the way to go. And it will work on any phone, no matter where you are. It's just 112 send and you're good to go.
Yeah, and bonus when they arrive.
And don't they arrive is right. I feel faint. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's never a bad thing when you get to see the firemen and the police in Paris. Well, we'll go ahead and leave it there. Thank you guys so much for everybody. Oh, Ellen, you found an apartment at good. Okay, so real quick about the airfare. I have a client and she's been watching flights and I got a notification. Flights in the fall have come down to normal, like around $700 round trip. So if I even saw some that were like $500 out of New York, and that's not on French B. So if you are planning on going in the fall and you're waiting because of the prices are so high, go look right now, especially with the way the dollar is. Just it's a great time to come. But we will do this again for sure another time. And thank you so much, Chrissy. And make sure you guys all check out her wonderful website and sign up so you get her every time she posts, you get it as an email, because they're always great. And you can learn even more about, red lipstick and all those fun things.
Thank you for having me. It has been such a pleasure.
Thank you. And if you are coming to Paris, I will be there full time in just a few weeks. I can't wait. But I do tours in Paris, not just at the Louvre. Of course, when I started doing tours, it was all about Hemingway. And that was the one I did all the time because obviously my name's Claudine Hemingway. But now I don't do that one very often. I spend most of my time in the Louvre, but I do tours all over Paris and could do anything custom because of these walks every Sunday that we do, the live walks. I pretty much know like something about all of the little corners. But you could do that. I also do trip planning. So if you're on here and you had questions and this is your first time or second time going, I do customized planning for people and could do that too. So, but it is already, September is going to be crazy. I don't think I have a day off in September, but which can't wait. I'm so excited to share Paris with people. But if you're coming, definitely reach out. Even if you're coming next year, reach out sooner rather than later, because next year's filling up as well. But you could do that. And my website is ClaudineHemingway.com. And then Parisian Niche is Chrissy's. And she also has her book club and everything else that she does. And it's amazing. And you should definitely check it out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys all so much. And we will see you soon. And next Sunday, we will be back with a live walk. I checked with Kate today. I did not want Kate out. It was going to be, last week I said it was going to be 104 today. I think it's just in the high 90s, but it's going to be 102 and 104 the next 2 days in Paris. So, but it's going to be in the 80s next week. So we're going to do a live walk, and it is the day the Tour de France finishes in Paris. So I'm going to try to figure out a way. I don't think we'll be able to see the finish just because of the timing. And then also just with the streets closed, I'm trying to figure out a way that we could see something that has to do with the tour. So check in. I'll post it on my website under events and also on the Facebook group. But thank you guys all so much. And we hope to see you tomorrow or next Sunday. That's already next Sunday. And we'll do this again with Chrissy sometime soon.
Bon voyage, everybody. Happy planning.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks, Chrissy.
Bye.
Bye.